and we did chat about digital currency and social credit scores, and you basically had pointed out that you thought that this was inevitably the way it's going to go.
Yeah.
So, like, why do you think that's inevitable?
I think when you look at where tech, so I work in tech, right? I don't just sort of shout from the sidelines in the political sphere 24/7. My day job is within the tech space. And I've seen tech advancing and I've seen capitalism like advancing with it. I just think when you've got something like digital currency that makes the lives of so much of the population easier, and there's sort of two or three upticks to it, I just think you don't really stand much of a chance pushing back on it and saying, I don't want to go in that direction when you've got enterprise, you've got small businesses, you've got all of these overheads attached to cash where like you're going to have to convince them to pay more and live more awkwardly to satisfy your concerns about digital currencies that they may not be up to speed with. So I feel like industrially, because of the convenience factor, it will just move in that direction anyway. It doesn't mean I necessarily think it's a great, flawless idea, but I just think that is probably where we're headed.
It's like, do you think it has to be a government controlled digital currency? Because that's where the real like discussion comes.
The
Like,
concern is, yeah.
yeah,
Um, Do I think it needs to be government controlled? No, probably not. If it were to be government controlled, and I'm positive the government would like control of it,
oh yeah, I think you can say that again.
I mean, you only have to look at the hysteria around things like Bitcoin over the last like sort of 7 years to see how frightened they are. And I think, am I right in saying Bitcoin's still banned in China?
Yeah,
Completely.
thanks China. It made it way more renewable energy friendly
Yeah, yeah.
because
So
they were burning coal plants to run it, and now
yeah,
now it's like 70% renewable energy.
yeah. Well, thanks China. Yeah. I mean, like I just feel like the fright that was attached to it and the hysteria that was wrapped around it tell you everything that you need to know in terms of what they want to maintain or instill control over. Um, I don't think it's necessary that government have control over it. I'd like to see, like when Bitcoin first started bubbling up, I jumped on it, and I made a lot of money in the space of about like 6 months, and then I got fucking stung. Like it was so embarrassing. I wasn't going to talk about this tonight, but now I suppose it is sort of linked in with digital currency and cashlessness. So here's what happened, right? So I got really excited about Bitcoin. I worked in tech, so I heard about it reasonably early on. I thought, you know what? I don't have loads of capital to throw into this, but what I will do is every time I was going to go and get a coffee from the little barista thing, instead of doing that, I'll put 250 on my app and bought Bitcoin with it. And because I drink so much fucking coffee, over the space of like a month, 2 months, 6 months, like this sort of £250 initial deposit over the first month, like I said, lots of coffee, fucking ballooned. Like it went up to like 1,200, £1,300, which, you know, we're not talking ludabucks here, but that's
No.
enough to make your eyes like widen and go, okay, this is
Mm-hmm.
interesting. So then I started bragging to my girlfriend about it, going like, I put this money into Bitcoin and like, this could be our spending money for our holiday. Like we're going to have a baby and, well, did end up having a baby. Um, and the day before we were due to go to fly out to the south of France for this sort of baby moon, like last holiday before baby comes along, uh, the license from the credit card company or the debit card was stripped with no notice. Like Visa just said, no, you can't operate within this space. That money was, I could not touch it. It was just sat in this account. I had to pay a guy to transfer, like it was a real rigmarole to have it transferred into this and then put through SEPA over into
Mm-hmm.
this account and then converted back. I lost about half that money. And it just made me think, oh, this is fucking ridiculous. Like, I'm not doing that again. Um, anyway, look, that's a really roundabout way
Not
of
your
saying,
keys, not your
yeah,
coins, man.
yeah,
Which a lot of people have learned that lesson very hard in the last month.
sure, sure,
FTX going down, BlockFi, Binance is next.
yeah,
Um, Yeah, anyone that's still operating on those exchanges is a moron. Not even operating on it, just keeping their money on it.
Yeah,
Like,
but then where do you sit on that? So if you're sort of anti-cashless, and then you see something like FTX go down, are you like, well, that wouldn't be government controlled cashless, so therefore I'm supportive of it? Or are you like, it's cashless, so I don't like it, so I'm glad it went down?
so there's many levels to my feelings about this.
Right.
I think that basically everything that isn't Bitcoin is a shit coin, and it's a Ponzi scheme scam set up by people to make a lot of money.
Right.
Apart from a couple of ones that were literally just set up for fun. I even think that the Ethereum token is a backdoor into these central bank digital currencies because it's being set up to be the basis for a lot of the ones that are being trialed. And it's centrally controlled. Some guy, like, they've just decided to go. The problem with most of them is that they're proof of stake, right? Which means that your ability to make money off of them is based on your ability to have money to put into it in the first place, which is just the financial system we have now. That's no different, right? The proof of work that comes along with Bitcoin, like BTC, is like you have to have the computing power and you have to run you have to run the miners to crack your code, and like at least it's based on something physical.
Yeah.
Right? It's not just, oh, well, we made up like this coin. We made up this coin.
Yeah.
And we're just going to set the value and we own 70% of it. So sweet. You know, which is Ethereum. So it's, and the FTX thing, like, I am really not convinced that this wasn't a way to backdoor get into regulating the crypto market.
Right.
Because Sam Bankman-Fried was like on the stage with all of the worst people that you can possibly imagine. Bill Clinton, Tony Blair, like big friends with fucking Gary Gensler, who's the head of the SEC. He's getting like these lavish, wondrous think pieces still. Right. Like after he's lost all these people's money written by the New York Times. Like they're like, oh, well, he didn't know what he was doing. He was just in over his head. And he's like, bitch, he's lost people billions. Like,
poor thing.
So I'm not convinced that they didn't let these things go and run knowing that they would collapse.
Yeah.
Or at least they failed to regulate them because they thought, oh, well, you know, if it all falls apart, great, then we have a good reason to regulate it. Because people didn't want them to go into that market.
Are you naturally quite suspicious?
Yes.
Are you? Yeah.
I used to be way less suspicious.
Right.
Of the government, and generally just I was way more naive, and now I am just like who is trying to fuck me here?
Right.
So it's like
the meme of the guy off It's Only Sunny.
Yeah.
Wait, right. Okay. Cool.
Literally.
Yeah.
Like it's not even like that crazy. Like I'll entertain anything, right? What I actually believe is like it's very difficult to pin me down on, but I don't like the idea of the government having control of the money.
Yeah.
And because they fucked it. Like the last 40 years has been them, and this is the reason I don't want the central bank digital currency. Like even if you put aside the control programmable aspect of it, right, and the link into the digital ID and the social credit system, you put that aside, even though like the Tories are very, very, very rapidly heading down that road,
right?
Especially with the new.
You must be mistaken because I'm sure they're all libertarians. Right?
Oh yes, of course. Fucking pieces of shit trying to pretend like they don't want a government while pillaging it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so like even aside from like they're very concerned in protest bills. Over the last 40 years, 50 years since the pound and the dollar became decoupled from gold, since it was just like we'll just print whatever and there's no back into it.
Yeah.
That in my mind has been the thing that has been destroying our economy since Thatcher. Mm-hmm. And it came along with a bunch of like deregulation and like heavy amounts of privatization and like this horrible neoliberalism that we've been fucking stuck with ever since. But the main problem is that they just printed it endlessly, right? Especially over the past 10 years. They've added more than £1 trillion to the money supply in Britain. Mm-hmm. And everyone wonders why we have such massive inflation.
Yeah.
And like it's
because money's fucking worth less now, right?
Because they've just printed it and printed it and printed it. And if they have control of a digital currency, then they will just do the same, except they don't even need to go to the Bank of England anymore.
But it's so like cyclical, isn't it? So they will print endless amounts of money through quantitative easing. And what that does, because you're cheapening money, you're actually inspiring, let's say, the older generations, like people in their autumn years who are getting chunks of their pension out, don't want that money, that nest egg, to be cheapened. And whereas they may have invested it in bonds or currency, even like back in the day, now they're like, well, hang on a second, I've got to be smart about this, right? Like I don't want my nest egg, my life savings, to be watered down, so I'm going to put it in property. And then that's where it starts to become this sort of self-perpetuating problem, because what you're doing then is putting a crunch on the property market, which then becomes more expensive. Money is cheaper, so people are like, how come like inequality is so bad now? I'm like, because of that fucking shit. Like, this all started about 20 years ago, and the longer we leave it, the longer we kick the can down the road, the worse it's going to get.
Hey everyone, thanks for making it right the way to the end of the podcast. I love that you tuned in this long. Do me a favor, hit subscribe, because 80% of you bastards are not subscribing, but you're watching my videos. See you next time.